special powers though. You make me scared, you make me go. Could it be this mystery? Could it be telepathy? You always know what I'm thinking. Do you remember me? Remember when we're forsaken? It takes to see when I leave it all behind.
Oh my God, I love that song so much. I seriously do love that song. Every time it comes on, I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want to stop playing it because I love it so much. I am shrouded in darkness, like right now. Like, I do not understand how much darkness or why I am so shrouded in it, but yet I am shrouded. So we're just going to go with this Morticia Addams kind of look. I mean, obviously I've done it with the makeup anyway, but yeah, I don't know why suddenly it's so dark. Okay, but hold on. We have a few things we need to check on because we didn't get a chance to check on them. First of all, it doesn't look like I'm live on YouTube, which is super weird. Like I should be live on YouTube, like right now. And yet I am not. So let's just double check on that. Da-dun-da-dun. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, good. I'm live. Okay, we're good. We're live on YouTube. Fabulous. All right, we got that. Live on YouTube. Sweet. Okay. Number one, we're live on YouTube. Next thing we're checking is LinkedIn to make sure we're live on LinkedIn. And then we'll get this show on the road, people. All right, we're going to be real honest here. I'm going to mute this. I ain't all there. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, let's just make sure that I'm live on LinkedIn. Look at me being live on LinkedIn. There we go. Okay, great. We did it. Okay, we're live on LinkedIn. We're live where we need to be. Fabulous. Okay, I can see the comments. Great. Let's get this show on the road then. Okay. So, hi, Kelly. I am here. You know, dude, I really wanted to be here. Oh, God, I'm going to try not to cry. Thank God I have my, let me just close this out. Thank God I have my tissue paper here. So for those of you that don't know, I ended up in the ER on Wednesday. I had a severe allergic reaction to lisinopril, and this is your PSA. If you have high blood pressure and you are on lisinopril, please know that one of the things that you can get is an angioedema, which is where your face starts to swell up. And like my eyes, it's on LinkedIn, you can see the pictures, my eyes, like it started with one eye. And I got to say, you know, I'm very cosmically aligned, you know, I'm very believing in the woo, you know, the whole 9 yards. And my spirit usually is around for me, and my spirit will usually like just be like, hey, you know, you might want to do this, you might want to do that, but doesn't usually intervene in my life in like a very aggressive way. And on this day, Spirit said, go to the ER right now. And I was like, you know, it's just allergies. I'll take a Benadryl and a Flonase, and then I just go to bed. And Spirit was like, it was literally like, you know, like those cartoons where it's like trying to drag you out the door. And I'm like, okay, I'm going. I'm listening. I listen. And it was by the time I got to the hospital, my whole right-hand side was swollen up. The left-hand side started to swell up. It was moving down into my body, and I'm starting to freak the fuck out at this point because like my wife is somewhere else. I'm like, typically she's with me. She never leaves. She left once for electrolysis, once for like half an hour. So anyway, so there's this whole thing, and the next day or so is like a blur for me. But I remember being really, really, really scared. And the whole lot of things happened. There was a very nice, okay, so funny story. Okay, here's the funny story. So I'm like throwing up and everything is like it. Oh my God. And I took 2 weed gummies before I went. Okay. So now like, this is before I started having the allergic reaction. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is not where I want to be having weed gummies in my system now. And, hi Scarlett. Oh my God. It was so scary. So I'm vomiting in this bag. Okay. So they have this amazing vomit bags. Like, God, those bags are so cool. But I wouldn't let go of it because it was like my comfort bag. And I remember it being my comfort bag when I had my top surgery too. So like I'm holding on, they're like, can I give you a clean one? And I'm like, yes. So I called it my emotional support vomit bag, and I just wouldn't let go of it. And so my nurse Rosie actually ended up bringing me this stuffed toy because I wouldn't let go of my empty vomit bag as my emotional support vomit bag. But that thing was amazing. I'm just going to say those bags, I brought some home for my own comfort. So anyway, so that was my weekend. And so I did, you know, and I'm on steroids right now. So I had my morning where I took it's a whole thing. So why did I go live, right? Because Kelly's like, why are you, like, you're here. And, you know, here's why. Because over the last, so I've been sick and had times in my life where I was alone, where I felt lonely, where I felt like I didn't have a community, where I felt like, you know, I had to like rethink, you know, I mean, we've had moments like this in our lives, especially as you get older, you have more of them, you know, just because that's life. And I am very fortunate to have a beautiful community around me. And like, I've cultivated it, right? So I've cultivated a community of friends in research administration. Like, we work together, but like, I've known some of you since we were kids. And when I say kids, I mean like 20 years ago, right? Like, when you think back, it was like 20 something years ago, we were all children. Like, we were just starting out. These are people I've known for years. This is how I reaffirm life, right? This is being with my community, doing things that I care about, right? Doing things that matter to me. What brings me joy, right? Because when I was laying there on that bed, the things that I was thinking about was, what are the things, there's so many things that bring me joy that I'm afraid to do, or that hold me, or that I let myself get held back from, or whatever. And oh my God, those bags are so good, right, Scarlett? Like, seriously, of all the things to take from this entire experience, the bags, the vomit bags are so good. So I wanted to go live because for me, this is how I reaffirm my life, right? This is how I celebrate the fact that, oh my God, I didn't die, right? Like, they're talking about intubating me. Syra and Allie, by the way, are reading up on angioedema and reading that it's, you know, potentially life-threatening, but they're not telling me. And here's what's really funny, right? I'm like, I said this to them later. I said, you seriously think that by not telling me, I didn't already know what was happening? Like, it would have helped if you had kind of just said the thing and we could have just done the thing and talked about it, right? But they were trying to protect me, which I totally get. But, you know, I feel a stronger connection to life. And so even though I wasn't feeling super great today, right? And I could have, like, I took the prednisone this morning, and so I was feeling very shaky and crying and all the misery and whatnot, right? And I thought about not doing it, but then I was like, if I don't do it now, then I'm not going to get to do it until next week. And then the cup filling that I get from these conversations, hanging out with Scarlett, Kelly, and the people that come later on and comment and watch it later, like, those are the things that, like, I mean, that's why that's friends. That's why we're here, right? Like, otherwise I'm just sitting in my house crying and stuff. By the way, I'm just going to say I did a really great job on my makeup today. Like, I feel like we should all talk about how good my makeup is and how really, like, gothy I'm looking right now. Like, I feel like I'm bringing the goth today, right? And which is a strange thing to say. It was like, I'm celebrating my life with gothiness right now, everyone. We're all going to celebrate our lives with gothiness. Okay, so how are we celebrating today? We're celebrating one with this Rosie is amazing. I also have to say, what, you know, Kelly, we were talking about this last week about Cadillac healthcare, right? And how Allie and I had lost our healthcare because of the fact that Allie's company is switched to a different healthcare provider, United Healthcare, that doesn't cover transgender surgeries and whatnot. And we ended up, my company is now, we have health insurance through my company. And I'll tell you, I thought of you I thought about that Cadillac health insurance, and I thought about the privilege that exists to have health insurance, right? And because I grew up in Pakistan, and there was no health insurance when I was in Pakistan. And when I first was living in Pakistan, when I was like 8 or 9, the hospitals were not like the hospitals are here. Like, they're not, and now they're very, like, it's very different. But this is the early 80s. It was a very different time. The privilege of having really good health care, the privilege of having health insurance that covered that health care, the privilege that I was able to speak English, they were able to speak English to me. There's nothing, and they're like, being bilingual, there's nothing wrong with being bilingual. However, some places are not equipped to be able to understand what it is that someone is trying to say. And then there are the nuances, right? Because, like, there were periods where I was speaking in Urdu, and I remember it now that I was like, and I was calling for my ummi, and I knew that there was nobody there who could understand what I was saying. Allie understood enough because she's been around me for so long, right? But, like, when I was lapsing into Urdu, nobody could understand what I was saying. And that's scary, right? And so I realized, but I had the privilege of being able to, there's just so many different privileges that came with having such a good experience, right? Like, no, that afforded me such a good experience, right? That I feel, again, like I'm reminded why I'm here, like why we're all here. Like, for me personally, my personal life mission is, how do I extend that privilege? How do I get that out to more people so that more people, anyone who is suffering from that kind of a thing, feels that level of security and safety? Kelly, lisinopril exacerbated my long COVID cough, and when I stopped taking it, oh my God, dude, do you know what's so funny about that cough? I had no idea that my cough was from the lisinopril. I have had this weird cough for such a long time, and I had no idea what it was. And then when I went to the ER and they're talking about all the random things that, oh my God, Ghosty is having a moment out there. I can hear him shrieking. They told me about this cough, and Kelly, and then other people started telling me about this cough, and I'm like, this cough has been the lisinopril all along? Like, who knew? So, okay, so for PSA for everybody, if you are on lisinopril and you start to swell, just please take this cautionary tale. Do not wait, go to the ER right away. That is something that can happen, and I would hate to have any of my friends or people that I care about take a Benadryl and go to sleep, and then just God knows what could happen. So just please think about that. Lisinopril, by the way, I'm not trying to start any fear mongering or anything like that, because it's a great drug. It helped me for years. There's a second generation one, but I'm actually going to, because I got on my meds before I transitioned, and I feel like I'm getting off my meds for right now, recalibrate, and then like start again, because I feel like I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago when I got on a lot of these meds. And so I feel like I might need to like just reset and figure out like what is my baseline now. Okay. So, oh, thank you so much, Scarlett. Thank you. I'm glad that Scarlett jumped in on my great makeup thing. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I don't usually wear makeup, but like I feel lately more like Kelly's doing the same. I feel like, it makes sense because we get on these medications, right? And here's why I want to talk about this a little bit is because, and I'm glad you were talking, because I was watching this video. This woman named Jessica, and I cannot remember her last name. She's a British woman. She's a LGBTQ icon on YouTube, and she's dressed very 20s, wears these fascinators, and she's chronically ill. And she was doing a video where she was talking about being chronically ill, and she has like 1 point something million followers. So she's this is my Star Trek mug and my iced tea. Just FYI, I'm not drinking scotch first thing in the morning. All right, guys, I had a really long week. I need some scotch. Excuse me. So she was talking about being chronically ill, and I think one of the things that is important for me, right, to acknowledge is that, we're all research administrators, but we're research administrators in the context of our lives, right? Like, so it's not like you wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, I'm putting on my RA hat, which means my chronic illness hat goes away, my parent hat goes away, the fact that I need to eat hat goes away. Like, none of those hats go away. You're wearing them at the same time as you're being a research administrator. And so for me, or for any one of us who suffers from a chronic illness or who has an acute situation like this, there's a coming back into it, right? Where you're like, reorienting. What am I supposed to do now? Right? Like, I've just spent 5 days like fearing for my life, and now what? I'm supposed to go back to work and start doing cost transfers? What? Right? Now here's the thing. I love doing cost transfers. I love doing them. But at the same time, it's a cognitive dissonance. Kelly said that after my BC treatment, now I'm on estrogen blockers as the follow-up. All my meds need to be reassessed. Thankfully, my team thinks so as well. I think that's so important, is when my team is like that too. Having a team of people that are working with you is so helpful, because like, we're the CEOs of our own healthcare, where we're sort of like figuring these things out. But like, we need people who are experts in their own area to be able to work with us on the various things. So like, I'm getting my duloxetine, I'm going down on as well, my Cymbalta for my fibromyalgia and my ADHD and whatever else it is I want it for. But that's no joke, getting off of like, my body is seriously going through so much shit right now. Kelly, listen, for anyone else who is doing this with me, I'm with you. I feel it. And you also have to do your day-to-day job while you're doing these things, right? So it's like, so let's say, for example, you have a morning where you're taking your prednisone, or have a day where the whatever medication is you're taking has a higher impact of some kind, and you haven't felt it in a few days, so suddenly you're feeling shaky and weird, and usually you're feeling it and you're like, why do I feel so bad about something? You still have to be in that meeting. You still have to do that thing, right? And so for me, because so much of my community is chronically ill, so over the last 10 years, my entire community has grown into or developed into people with many different types of invisible illnesses, that are chronic conditions or are caregivers, right? Or have other extenuating, exacerbating circumstances that make it so that they do not have the same 24 hours in a day that everybody else does. And as a result, we have to be very dexterous in terms of how we handle our scheduling and things like that, right? And where was I going with that? I was going somewhere with that. Oh, yeah. So one of the things I want to recommend for anyone who is going through this is to check out the Commitment to Clock Out series that I have on Manessa.tv. And the reason why is because that is designed specifically for bringing yourself back. Like, how do you get a system in place so that it runs for you when you need it to run? But so that if you have these crises moments, or if you have a flare, or you have something where it's like, okay, I have to stop everything for a certain period of time so that I can heal, which is really what we need to be doing, that we feel comfortable in the system that we have set up for us to where we're not anxious during that time, so that we know we can slide right back in. That's obviously only one part of the problem, because one part of the problem is, of course, the mechanics, right? Like, okay, I've got to take X amount of time off, and then I need to be able to slide back in, and I need to be able to pick things up, and, just almost like when you're merging onto the highway, right? So that's the one aspect of it. But then there's the other aspect of it, that is the aspect of are they going to let you on the highway, right? How do your managers and the leadership in your organization engage with you to create a feeling of safety where you feel like this is something you can do, right? And if I'm kind of going to come back to that, Scarlett, and if you find yourself, one of the biggest challenges can be that you don't feel safe in that environment to do that, right? So for example, let's say there's a ton of work, okay? Say there's 7 or 8 of you in the department, ton of work. Everybody knows there's a lot of work, right? You're sick. You have a flare, right? You say, listen, I'm flaring. And everybody says, don't worry, we got you. Take your time off. Fabulous, okay? You're going to feel safe. You might feel bad. You might feel whatever, but you're going to feel safe because everybody's got everything covered. But imagine instead if your boss says, well, this is kind of inconvenient. Can you be on a meeting this afternoon? Right? Like, you can take the day off, but I need you on this meeting. Even if your boss may be trying to be accommodating, which I'm going to, right? That is creating a feeling of lack of safety, because now it makes you feel like you are so important that you can't leave, which means you have to work even when you're sick, which, by the way, is totally wrong. And so now you do not have a feeling of safety. So next time you have a flare, you're more likely to just keep it to yourself, right? There are other ways in which feelings of lack of safety can be created in the workplace by your manager. I think it is important to recognize that if you are in a place where you do not feel safe to take care of yourself because there's just too much work and your boss is oppressing that upon you, I want to recommend reaching out and, like, let's see if we can't find you another place to go, right? Just because and that's only if you want to. I just don't think that I don't think that you would want to be in that space, because your life is honestly the most important thing. Like, that's just it. That's it. Like, grants are great and all the other things are great, but you have to be around, and we love you and we want you to be around. Okay. So that is, like, super, super important. Scarlett mentioned while we were talking that lesson from an anxious teen: if putting on eyelashes and doing nails make you feel powerful and confident, do it. I even learned this as a young adult. My daughter taught me that. Scarlett, can I just tell you, the teenagers and the kids, your kids, are the ones who teach me everything. Like, I remember when I was younger, I was told, the elders, listen to the elders. The elders know all the thing, right? And one day I was going to be an elder. And then my dad became, like, obsessed with being like, I'm the elder. Why is nobody listening to me? But as I got older, I remember, who cleared me of this was my therapist. So I walk into my therapist's office. She's not my therapist anymore because I was with her for like 8 or 9 years. Her practice grew so much. She ended up she just runs her practice, and I see a different therapist. But when I met her, she was like, I don't know, 20 something, 28 maybe. And I was like 35. And I remember going into her office, and the first thing I thought was, she's a kid. She's a kid. What on earth can she help me with? I was so pompous. I was so arrogant. And I was going to walk out. But I was like, I'm already here. And we talk about this. It's so funny. Like we've talked about this many times over the years, right? What a lesson. And she challenged me that one day on something because I was a what if, right? I'm a trauma survivor, so everything's always what if this happens, what if this happens, what if this happens. And I remember that very first day, she told me all about all the things she'd done, and my God, she had done quite a bit. So listen to me being Miss Judgy Pants. And then she gave me a suggestion she challenged me on something, and I took it. It was just for 1 week. Instead of saying what if, just don't say it and see what happens. That was it. That woman changed my freaking life. I saw her for like 10 years before I moved on to a different therapist. Like, she's amazing. She's amazing. And I realized in that moment that I had so much to learn from the people who came after me. It changed my whole world. And now almost all my mentors are younger than me. Like, so many of my mentors are younger than me because they just don't bring the shit baggage that I bring with me, right? It's like, it's amazing. I love it. I love your teenagers. I love your children. All of you who have children, I love them. They are helping me become a better person. So thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to my therapist, Nicole, who disabused me of the notion that you can only learn from older people. Because I can tell you, some things you just don't want to learn from me. I have too much baggage. Okay, so coming back to this, okay, so I want to come all the way back because originally what I wanted to talk about this week, and it actually makes a lot of sense, right? To actually dovetail into this. Kelly, I know you're really into this. Scarlett, I know you're really into this, is about technology. Okay, now how are we going to make this jump from like technology to, oh my God, you're allergic to prednisone. What happens? Like, you know what? I'm going to Google this right now. Just like, because I don't know what happens, like, oh my God. I was terrified they were going to give me penicillin. Oh my God. Oh my God. It can give you the itching, swelling, and the face, tongue, throat. So they can give you the prednisone to eliminate that, and then it gives it to you. Oh my God, that's so scary, Scarlett. Oh my goodness. What can you take instead? Is there something else that can do the, do the balance? Hives. Ugh. Okay. So let me pull up my thing from what we were talking about last week. Hold on, because I had a. Where do we go? I know it's in here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. So now, while I'm sitting on the bed, thinking about life and death and all those nice things, it made me think about why are we even doing any of this? Right? That's sort of what because first of all, once you're positive you're not dying now, and they're like, okay, you're stable. Now you're just sitting in the hospital bed with just lots of time. And, you're rethinking life. And fortunately, I feel like I was like, oh, I'm on the right path. There's not many things that I would super change right now. So I'm still on that. So that's good. But the thing that I started to think about, which goes back to our conversation from last week, was why are we even doing any of this? Okay, so and what I mean by that is, let's use technology as an example. Okay, like, how do we end up in these situations, right? Why would we switch technology? Why would you switch from PeopleSoft to Workday, from Workday to Oracle? Like, why would you do that, right? Well, I mean, typically it's for efficiency. It's for maybe it's more streamlined. Maybe they have more features. But like, that's just stuff. Why does any of that matter, right? And if you think about why any of that matters, it's, well, it will get work done faster, okay? It lets us be more, like, it lets us get work done faster. Gets money flowing faster, okay? What else? It's like, okay, well, if the money's flowing faster, the research is flowing faster, but that's not really true because the research is still flowing right now, right? So the research is still doing, maybe we're behind on the administrative side, but, some people are still buying pipettes. Okay, they're not going to stop us from buying pipettes, okay? But in the end, we're still talking about just moving stuff around, moving activities around, moving things around, right? The real reason why individual people do things is for some sort of a purpose, right? And I think that when we go into these ideas where we're like, I want to switch to this technology or that technology, I think we forget that there's people involved in this, right? And that we're actually trying to make Kelly's life easier. We're trying to make Scarlett's life easier. We're trying to make Manessa's life easier. We're trying to make it so that Dr. Mushtak, when she goes into surgery, trusts that all of these for her studies, that all of her pieces are in place, right? That is what we're actually trying to do, right? And we get so caught up in the minutia of all of this stuff. For example, should we do something homegrown or should we buy it from Huron? Or should we buy it from Cayuse? Or should we do it from PeopleSoft? And now the argument for the next 3 months is no longer about how are we making somebody's life better, how are we helping patients, how are we making Kelly's life easier, how are we making Vanessa's life easier. It's a fight about whether or not we should be doing Huron, or whether we should be doing Cayuse, or whether we should be checking off this box, or whether somebody should be programming that. And the whole point, everybody gets stuck in the weeds and in all of these things, and we forget why we are actually doing this, right? And what I found over the last several years, and I'd be really curious to see what your thoughts are, is that we get so caught up in being right about the piece of software that we want, how it should be done, convinced that somebody is making somebody else's life miserable because of how they're doing it, or someone isn't understanding this, or someone doesn't know what to do with their job, or so on and so forth. We forget to involve the people who are actually involved in the technological research. So for example, if you're going to be switching from PeopleSoft to Workday into your financial systems, it might behoove you to invite in your research administration team, your research administration financial team, someone who understands grants, someone who understands finances, someone who understands the bigger picture, and put together something to figure out, okay, how is this going to be helping us in the long run in terms of how we're handling the people and the things, less about, oh, look at this chart and see how pretty it is, and look, we can pull this report up and that report up and this report up and all of those things, right? And I think that one of the challenges that I'm observing, that I've heard a lot of people talking about right now, is that the works are being gummed up by a lot of this administrative junk. Whether it is software changes, it is process changes, it is paperwork, it is cumbersome administrative regulations, the things that are holding up the activities that are holding up the actual progress that we're trying to make are stuff we put in place over decades to solve other problems that existed over the time. And I wonder to myself, right, and this is one of the things that I'm really curious about over the next few years, is how can we simplify, right? Far be it from me to say that the US government did something to lead the way. However, the OMB idea of simplifying the circulars is kind of what we need right now. We need them to plant a flag, so to speak, and say that the amount of muck that we have added into the processes everywhere, from like, it starts at the government and goes all the way down to your organization. Like, if I had to think about how many pages, like, I remember vividly, this is the biggest mistake I ever made. I'm going to tell you a story. This is like, and I know you're going to think this is the silliest story ever, but I guarantee you have the exact same story. Okay, so here's the exact same story that we all share. Many, many, many years ago, we had an investigator at one of my organizations who really enjoyed, he didn't want to deal with subawards, right? So everybody was a consultant, right? So he tried to put everybody in as a consultant. And it was like one person who did this, maybe two at most. Like, there really weren't that many, but like, these were the two who were like, subawards are too much paperwork. It's too much nonsense. It's too much this. This person is a consultant, and insisted that this person was a consultant. And this happened a couple of times, and then we started to, we were like, we need to put some systems, we need to put this is like, I don't know, 20 years ago, it's a long time ago. So now we need to put processes and systems in place for these two people. And I joined a committee that was set up to put this process and system in place. And we met once a week for an hour or so. We did this for 5 or 6 months. It took hours and hours of work. We came up with 30 different pages and documents and forms and things you had to fill out. And oh my God. And let me just tell you, these were beautiful forms. I made them. They were gorgeous. They were beautiful. But wow, that's a lot of frickin' paperwork. just filling out the paperwork to identify whether or not someone was a consultant was so burdensome, right? And honestly, there are still processes like that in place today that we put in place for one or two people, but that now everyone has to follow in our organization, and it just adds more and more and more and more paperwork and time. And so as I was sitting there on the bed, my thought was, I don't want to be filling out all this paperwork. I don't want to. I would really, really prefer to do a cost transfer. That's a lot more fun for me. Like figuring out, oh, look, this is what went wrong and this is how you fix it. But like for one person who's going to be the person trying to break the rules, why do I need to have all of this? And so I think that is one of the, as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, because I actually moved everything I was going to talk about today, because there was somebody that I spoke with last week who had an amazing take on our PR problem. And I was like, oh my God, I totally want to talk about that. I had a whole different take on the IT stuff for today, and I was going to talk about that. But, when I started to think about it, I started to realize how it really is about, we're trying to be efficient, but I think a lot of us are stuck within the systems of our own organization. So I want to take the moment to highlight, exemplify, say, oh my God, I love you, to every person who is in your organization trying to clear the muck out, right? Because it's tough. When I was an archaeologist years ago, I was sitting in this pit. If you were at the Region 1 meeting, I had a picture of me sitting in the pit. I'll share it on LinkedIn later. And basically I'm sitting in this pit, and I sat in this pit for 6 weeks, and it was giant. And it was a great pit to be in. It had all of the artifacts. It was fabulous. But I'm literally scraping this pit with like a spoon, right? It's like a 2 meter by 1 meter thing. And I am scraping off each just with a little bit of a spoon. Just that's it. Just so little so that I can see every little thing. And then I'm brushing it off a little bit. And then you're spooning. And then you're like, this is not here. Let's take a shovel. And this is very slow, laborious work. And one of the hardest things to do in any archaeological site is dating the site. Okay, so especially in New England, because of just the acidity in the soil, the way things move around, it's tough. And so everyone else, while we were on this dig, moved from pit to pit to pit to pit to pit. They just did a pit, went down a meter, went to another pit, went down a meter. My pit was so full of artifacts. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen on this site before. I never left that. People literally left me. I was alone. They went to a completely different site, and I was still sitting in my pit by myself. And Steve and Two Hawks went for a walk one day. They came to see me. How are you doing? Then they left again to go where everybody else was. And then while Steve and Two Hawks were away with everybody else, I'm doing this, and wouldn't you know it, a coin came out. And a coin is the best way to date a site, because now you have a date. You know that everything below that came from before, right? You've dated that site. It's amazing, right? So Steve comes back and he said, how are you doing? I said, well, I dated the site. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, look at what I found, right? Found the coin. But that was after like 6 weeks of laborious work with a spoon and a little paintbrush, right? But I dated the site, which in the end was amazing. And I think that's true for the work that we do as well. In that for many of us, have been doing this for many, 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 many years. We understand what has happened. We've seen these layers build up because we built them. How lucky are we that we built them? We know how they got there. The exercise that we are all doing right now across the country, like, it's amazing how we all collectively started doing this, and now we're all talking about it. And that's why I'm so excited right now to be doing all this LinkedIn stuff and seeing all the people talking, because now we can find each other, right? And if you're not on the Patreon, join the Patreon at Manessa.com. And here's why. Because I'm gathering all of us together. All of us who have spoons and paintbrushes. We're all sitting in there and we're doing these little scrapes, right? in our own little organizations, in our own little ways, and so on. But if we find each other and we collectively talk about it constantly, what are we doing? What are we changing? How are things happening? What did you find under your spoon this week, right? Then we can learn from each other in a way that we couldn't before, because we get together at limited, we talk here for 20 minutes. Kelly and I see each other every so often. I mean, we see each other every 2 weeks, but we're typically talking about something very specific. So we don't really have time to talk about these things, right? These are the mornings where we have this conversation. Kelly will send me a message, be like, oh my God, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try that. And we build these things sort of together. In the meantime, there's things happening that I don't even know anything about, right? Which is the beauty of all of this, because as we collectively come together, right, we will start to then see more clarity, and we'll start to brush away. And then it's almost like, okay, I'm going to date myself right now. Archie comics. Okay. So many years ago when I was like 9, I was reading an Archie comic. Okay. So this was an Archie comic, and there was a great disaster in Riverdale. And it was that the beach by their lake was just disgusting, because people were throwing trash in it, and it was awful. And the gang got together and decided they were going to clean up the beach. And I remember so vividly watching each of the panels, right? So as they went through the first panel and they took off some, and you could see it slowly getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And then at the very end, the beach was all nice and everybody's enjoying it. And then Jughead and everybody say their nice little cute thing, and it's the end, right? But that's what we're doing, right? We're going panel after panel after panel after panel, and then we're just going to get to that spot where we're like, okay, this is it, and we're building that future for research administration. So I think that's why I wanted to go live today, even though I wasn't feeling great. Which I have to say, just being with you, having you guys here with me today is really nice. This is why I went live. I went live because I knew you'd be here. I went live because I like to talk to you. I went live because this is how communities grow, and is where you have these feelings, right? These feelings are what community is. So here's what I'm going to leave you with today. Okay. There are some incredible collaborate conversations coming up about AI. Kelly and I and many others are on the, ERA Commons Collaborate Committee, and we're collaborating with the AI committee. And what we've learned is that a lot of us are talking about AI. A lot of us are aware of AI. A lot of us are curious about AI, but not everybody's using it. And even people who are using it, like myself, we're not using it to its full capacity. I would argue that I'm using it not even close to what it could be used for. And so we're really, and we don't know a lot about how AI is being implemented in ERA, right? And how we're going to leverage that tool and resource. And there are many people who are playing around with it right now, but we're just not having that conversation isn't happening out right now. And so we want to help to move that conversation out. So if you are AI happy, or you want to know more about AI or any of those things, just reach out to me, reach out to Kelly. But we'll keep an eye out for the emails from NCURA as we get those things coming. That was 1. And then 2, what was the other thing? There was another thing, but I don't remember what it is because steroid brain. So I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back next week. I think I will be off the prednisone then, thank God. So I'll be more normal, but I think I'll definitely bring my goth look back. I think we're definitely, because I agree with Scarlett here 100%. By the way, again, Scarlett, love your name. I think when I was little, I think maybe I felt silly wearing makeup. I don't know why. I just did. But today I felt powerful doing it, and that's exactly why I did it. And so I really appreciate that you said what you did, because you empowered me, and I guess that's what communities do. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, hold on. We're going to go to the scene for my music, because you know how much I love that song. It's just so good. This is my friend Sean, by the way, from when I was younger. All right, enjoy.